Last night on Jimmy Kimmel Live, Meghan Markle clashed with Jimmy in a fiery showdown. Tensions soared as secrets spilled and egos collided, ending with Meghan storming off the set in a huff. Here's how it all went down. The stage was set for a typical night of late-night banter on Jimmy Kimmel Live. The audience buzzed with anticipation as Jimmy, with his trademark grin, introduced his guest, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex turned media mogul. She strode out in a sleek, tailored blazer, her smile polished but tight, waving to the crowd as if she owned the room. Jimmy, ever the affable host, started with the usual pleasantries, compliments on her latest Netflix documentary, a nod to her philanthropy. But the air felt charged, like a storm was brewing beneath the surface. The audience, packed with fans and skeptics alike, leaned in, sensing something was off. Jimmy kicked things off with a softball question about her new lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard. "So, Meghan," he said, leaning back in his chair, "you're selling jam now. Is this like the royal version of a lemonade stand?" The crowd chuckled, but Meghan's smile flickered. She launched into a rehearsed spiel about empowering small businesses and curating authentic products. Her tone was measured, but there was a defensiveness in her eyes, like she was bracing for a fight. Jimmy nodded along, but his grin had a mischievous edge, and the audience could tell he was about to pivot. He did. "Let's talk about something else," Jimmy said, his voice light but pointed. "You've been in the news a lot lately, not just for jam. There's this whole narrative about you and Harry, the royal family, the media. People say you're orchestrating this big PR campaign to stay relevant. What's the real story?" The question landed like a grenade. The audience gasped, then went silent, waiting for Meghan's response. Her jaw tightened, and for a split second her composed facade cracked. She leaned forward, her voice low but sharp. "Jimmy, I don't orchestrate anything. I live my truth. Harry and I have been through hell with the media, and we're just trying to build something real." Jimmy raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "Sure, but some folks say you're playing the victim card a bit too hard. Like, every interview, it's poor me. The royals were mean. Is that the brand now?" The crowd oohed, sensing blood in the water. Meghan's eyes narrowed, and she gripped the armrests of her chair. "That's a lazy take, Jimmy," she shot back. "You're buying into the same tabloid nonsense you claim to mock. We've been hounded, lied about, and smeared. I'm not here to play nice with people who twist our story." The tension was palpable now, the studio lights feeling hotter, the audience shifting in their seats. Jimmy, never one to back down, leaned in closer. "Okay, but let's be real. You've got a knack for stirring the pot. That Oprah interview? The book? The Netflix series? It's like you're throwing punches and then crying foul when someone swings back." Meghan's face flushed, and she let out a short, incredulous laugh. "You're really going there, huh? You think I'm the one throwing punches? The media's been dragging us for years, and I'm supposed to just sit there and take it?" The exchange was getting heated, and the audience was eating it up. Jimmy, sensing the moment, doubled down. "I'm just saying it feels calculated. You're out here calling out the royals, but you're still using the Duchess title to sell jam. Isn't that a bit hypocritical?" The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and gasps. Meghan's composure was hanging by a thread. She leaned back, crossing her arms, her voice dripping with disdain. "You know what's hypocritical, Jimmy? Acting like you're just asking questions when you're clearly trying to paint me as the villain. I'm not here for your gotcha moment." The studio was electric now, every word a spark threatening to ignite. Jimmy, with his knack for pushing buttons, didn't let up. "I'm not painting you as anything," he said, holding up his hands. "But you've got to admit you're good at keeping the spotlight on you. Like this whole 'we want privacy' thing. Then why are you on my show?" The audience roared, some clapping, others murmuring in shock. Meghan's eyes flashed with fury. "I'm here because I was invited," she snapped, But clearly I should have known better than to expect a fair conversation. She paused, glancing at the audience, her expression a mix of defiance and hurt. You want to know why I do this? Because I'm done letting other people control my story. I'm done with the lies, the leaks, the palace insiders who trash us to save face. Jimmy tilted his head, his smile fading slightly. Okay, but who's controlling the story now? You're out here dropping bombshells and it's not exactly de-escalating things. Meghan scoffed, her voice rising. De-escalating? You think I owe them that? After everything they've done? The crowd was on edge, hanging on every word. Jimmy, sensing he'd struck a nerve, went for the jugular. Look, I get it. You've got grievances. But some say you're burning bridges for clout. Like, you're not just telling your truth, you're weaponizing it. Meghan froze, her lips parting as if she couldn't believe the accusation. For a moment it looked like she might walk away right then. Instead, she leaned forward, her voice low and venomous. Weaponizing? That's rich, coming from a guy who makes a living off cheap shots and viral clips. The audience gasped, louder this time. Jimmy's eyes widened, but he recovered quickly, letting out a low whistle. Wow, okay, gloves are off, he said, half laughing, half stunned. I'm just asking what everyone's thinking. You're a master at spinning the narrative. Nobody's saying you're not smart. But is it about truth, or is it about winning? Meghan's face was a mask of barely contained rage. She stood up, her chair scraping against the floor, and pointed a finger at him. You don't get to lecture me about truth, Jimmy. You don't know what I've been through. The studio was dead silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. She took a step toward the edge of the stage, her heels clicking sharply. I came here to talk about my work, not to be ambushed, she said, her voice shaking with anger. The audience held its breath, waiting for Jimmy's next move. He leaned back, his expression a mix of surprise and amusement, clearly not expecting her to push back so hard. Ambushed? Meghan, it's a talk show. We ask questions, he said, his tone teasing but with an edge of challenge. Meghan shook her head, her hands clenched at her sides. No, this isn't questions. This is you trying to humiliate me for ratings. She turned to the audience, her voice rising. You all see this, right? This is what I deal with every day. People twisting my words, making me the bad guy. The crowd was split, some cheering her on, others whispering to each other, unsure what to make of the chaos unfolding. Jimmy, sensing the moment slipping out of his control, tried to pivot. All right, let's cool it down, he said, holding up his hands. We're just talking here. Let's switch gears. Tell me about the jam. But Meghan wasn't having it. She took another step toward the stage's edge, her eyes locked on Jimmy. You don't get to do that, she said, her voice low and cutting. You don't get to tear me apart and then act like it's all good. The audience was on the edge of their seats, the tension thick enough to choke on. Was she about to walk? Would Jimmy push her further? The night was far from over, and the real fireworks were just beginning. The studio lights burned brighter, or maybe it just felt that way as Meghan Markle stood at the edge of the Jimmy Kimmel live stage, her eyes boring into Jimmy with a mix of fury and defiance. The audience was frozen, their murmurs barely audible, as if they were afraid to break the spell of the moment. Jimmy, still leaning back in his chair, hands raised in a mock gesture of surrender, tried to keep the mood light, but his smile was strained, his eyes darting to the control booth for a split second. He knew he was treading on thin ice, but backing down wasn't his style. Meghan, come on, he said, his voice smooth but laced with a challenge. I'm not tearing you apart. I'm just asking what's on everyone's mind. You're a public figure. People have questions. Meghan's laugh was sharp, almost a scoff, cutting through the air like a blade. Questions? That's what you call this? You're not asking, Jimmy. You're accusing. You're spinning a narrative, just like the tabloids you pretend to be above. She took a step back toward her chair but didn't sit, her posture rigid, like a coiled spring ready to snap. The audience shifted, some leaning forward, others whispering, their phones already out, no doubt live tweeting the chaos. "I came here to talk about my work, my projects," Meghan continued, her voice rising. "But you can't resist turning it into a circus. You're not interested in my truth. You want a soundbite." Jimmy's grin faltered, but he recovered quickly. Leaning forward now, elbows on his desk, his tone sharper. "A circus? Meghan, you're the one who brought the spotlight with you. You can't drop bombshells in every interview and then act shocked when people push back." The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and boos, the divide in the room palpable. A woman in the front row shouted, "Let her speak," while another voice from the back called, "Tell it like it is, Jimmy." The noise only fueled the fire. Meghan's eyes flicked to the audience, her expression a mix of betrayal and resolve. "This," she said, gesturing to the crowd, "this is exactly what I'm talking about. You all eat up the drama, don't you? You want me to be the villain, because it's easier than facing the truth." Jimmy seized the moment, his voice cutting through the crowd's clamor. "Hold on, nobody's making you the villain. But you've got to see how it looks. Constantly airing dirty laundry, pointing fingers at the royals, the media, everyone. At some point, don't you think it's time to move on?" The audience roared again, the energy chaotic, almost unhinged. Meghan's face tightened, her lips a thin line. She crossed her arms, her voice dropping to a dangerous low. "Move on. You think I haven't tried? You think I want to keep reliving this? The media won't let me. People like you won't let me." The accusation hung heavy, and for a moment Jimmy seemed caught off guard. His usual quick wit stalled, and the silence was deafening. Then he leaned back, a glint in his eye. "People like me, huh? I'm just a guy asking questions, Meghan. But let's flip it. What's the end game here? You say you're done with the royals, but every move you make keeps them front and center. Are you fighting for freedom or just settling? Scores?" The crowd gasped, the question hitting like a punch. Meghan's eyes widened, her breath catching, and for a moment it looked like she might crack under the pressure. Instead, she stepped closer to Jimmy's desk, her voice steady but laced with venom. "You want to talk about endgames? How about yours? You sit there, acting like you're just keeping it real. But you're playing to the room, chasing clicks. You don't care about my story. You care about trending." The audience was split again, some clapping for her boldness, others murmuring disapproval. Jimmy chuckled, but it was forced, his jaw tight. "Trending? Sure, I like a good viral moment. But don't act like you're above it. You're out here building a brand on controversy. That's the game, right?" Meghan's hands dropped to her sides, her fists clenched. "The game? You think this is a game to me? My life, my family, my mental health? It's not a game, Jimmy. You have no idea what it's like to be torn apart every day, to have your every move twisted." Her voice cracked, just for a second, and the audience felt it. A flicker of vulnerability beneath the steel. But Jimmy didn't let up. "I get it, it's tough. But you're not exactly dodging the spotlight. You're on my show, you're on Netflix, you're everywhere. If you want peace, why keep feeding the beast?" The question was a dagger, and Meghan's face flushed with anger. "Feeding the beast? I'm surviving it. You think I want to be here, defending myself to you? I'm here because I have to be. Because silence isn't an option when people like you keep twisting the knife." The crowd was on edge, the air thick with anticipation. Jimmy leaned forward, his voice quieter now, almost conspiratorial. "Twisting the knife? Come on, Meghan. You're not some innocent bystander. You've got an agenda, same as everyone. You're just better at selling it." That was the breaking point. Meghan's eyes blazed and she pointed at him, her voice shaking with rage. "An agenda? You want to talk about agendas? How about the one where you invite me on, pretend to be friendly, then try to tear me down for laughs?" The audience gasped, the accusation raw and unfiltered. Jimmy opened his mouth to respond, But Meghan cut him off, her voice rising to a crescendo. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to sit there, smug, acting like you're above it all when you're just another cog in the machine that's been trying to break me." The studio was chaos now, the audience clapping, booing, shouting. Jimmy, sensing the moment spiraling, tried to regain control. All right, let's take a breath," he said, his hands up again, his tone softer but still edged with defiance. "Nobody's trying to break you, Meghan. But you've got to admit, you're not making it easy to have a calm chat." The crowd laughed nervously, but Meghan wasn't biting. She took another step toward the stage's edge, her heels clicking like gunfire. "A calm chat? That's what you call this? You're not interested in calm, Jimmy. You're interested in a fight." She turned to the audience, her voice commanding their attention. "You all see this, right? This is what I deal with. People who smile to your face while they're setting you up. I'm done playing along." The crowd was split, some cheering her defiance, others jeering her dramatics. Jimmy, his patience wearing thin, leaned back and crossed his arms. "Setting you up? Meghan, you walked into this. You knew what a talk show is. Don't act like you're shocked when it gets real." Meghan's eyes locked on his, and for a moment the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them. "Real?" she said, her voice low and cutting. "You wouldn't know real if it hit you in the face. You're just chasing the next big moment, and I'm not here to be your punching bag." She took a step back, her body language screaming that she was done. The audience held its breath, sensing the end was near. Jimmy, his face a mix of frustration and amusement, leaned forward, ready to fire back. But would he push her over the edge? The tension was unbearable, and the night was about to explode. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio was a pressure cooker, the air thick with the weight of Meghan Markle's words. Her accusation, "You wouldn't know real if it hit you in the face," hung between her and Jimmy like a live wire. The audience, caught in the crossfire, was a mix of rapt silence and restless energy, their phones glowing as they recorded every second of the meltdown. Meghan stood tall, her eyes blazing, her body angled toward the stage's exit, but she wasn't gone yet. Jimmy, his face a storm of frustration and calculated charm, leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of his desk. "Punching bag?" he said, his voice sharp but tinged with a performative laugh. "Meghan, nobody's throwing punches. I'm just doing my job, asking the questions people want answers to. You don't get to come here and dictate the rules." Meghan's lips curled into a bitter smile, her voice dripping with disdain. "Your job? Your job is to exploit people's pain for laughs, Jimmy. You're not a journalist, you're a showman, and I'm done being your act." The crowd erupted, a chaotic blend of cheers, boos, and gasps. A man in the back shouted, "Go Meghan!" while another voice yelled, "Sit down!" The noise was a tidal wave, but Meghan didn't flinch. She turned to the audience, her gaze sweeping over them like a queen addressing her court. "You all love this, don't you? The drama, the takedown. But this is my life you're clapping for, not some reality show." Jimmy seized the moment, his tone cutting through the chaos. "Your life? Meghan, you've made your life a reality show. You can't have it both ways, crying foul while you're out here selling your story to the highest bidder." The audience roared, the divide in the room sharper than ever. Meghan's face flushed, her hands trembling slightly as she pointed at him. "Selling my story? I'm reclaiming it, Jimmy. You and your kind. You twist everything. You take my pain, my truth, and turn it into a punchline. I'm not here for that." The tension was suffocating, the studio a battlefield of egos. Jimmy, sensing the crowd's hunger for more, leaned back, his smile tight but unrelenting. "Reclaiming it? Sounds like you're rewriting it. You talk about truth, but it's always your version. Nobody else's. The royals, the media, now me. Who's next on your hit list?" The jab landed hard, and the audience gasped, some clapping, others murmuring in shock. Meghan's eyes narrowed, her voice low and venomous. "My hit list? You're the one who invited me here to tear me down. You think I don't see through this? You need me to be the bad guy so you can play the hero." Jimmy's laugh was sharp, almost incredulous. "Hero? I'm just a guy with a mic, Meghan. You're the one who walked in here with a chip on your shoulder. If you can't handle a few tough questions, maybe you're not as tough as you think." The crowd oohed, the sound like gasoline on a fire. Meghan took a step closer to his desk, her heels clicking with purpose, her voice rising. "Tough? You have no idea what tough is. Try living under a microscope, with every word you say twisted, every move you make judged. I'm tougher than you'll ever know, but I'm not here to perform for you." The audience was on edge, sensing the breaking point. Jimmy, his patience fraying, leaned forward, his voice quieter but no less sharp. "Perform? That's exactly what you're doing right now. You're playing the martyr and it's working. The crowd's eating it up. But let's cut the act. You're not here to set the record straight. You're here to stay relevant." The accusation was a gut punch, and for a moment Meghan froze, her breath catching. The studio was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Then her eyes flashed with a fury that chilled the room. "Relevant?" she said, her voice shaking, with rage. "You think I'm doing this for relevance? I'm doing this because I have no choice. Because people like you won't let me live in peace." She turned to the audience again, her voice raw, almost pleading. "You all see this, right? This is what I face every day. People who smile while they stab you in the back. I came here to talk about my work, my life, but all you want is blood." The crowd was split, some cheering her defiance, others jeering her dramatics. Jimmy, his face a mix of exasperation and amusement, threw up his hands. "Blood? Meghan, you're the one swinging. I'm just asking questions. If you can't handle it, maybe you're not ready for this stage." That was it. Meghan's face hardened, her decision made. "Handle it?" she said, her voice steady now, cold as steel. "I've handled more than you could ever imagine. But I'm done handling this." She ripped off her mic, the clip clattering to the floor, and tossed it onto Jimmy's desk. The audience gasped, the sound echoing in the stunned silence. "You want a show? Find someone else to tear apart," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. She turned on her heel, her blazer catching the light as she strode toward the stage's exit, her steps deliberate, unyielding. Jimmy called after her, his tone a mix of mockery and surprise. "Meghan, come on, don't be like that. We're just talking." But she didn't look back. The audience was in chaos, some standing, others shouting, a few even booing as she disappeared behind the curtain. The stage lights dimmed slightly, the energy in the room shifting from electric to uneasy. Jimmy leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair, his grin returning but tinged with something else, maybe respect, maybe regret. "Well, folks," he said, turning to the camera, "that's one way to end an interview. Let's go to commercial." The audience buzzed as the show cut to break, the energy lingering like static. Backstage, whispers spread. Crew members exchanging glances, producers scrambling to manage the fallout. Meghan was gone, her exit a statement louder than any words she'd spoken. On social media, the clips were already going viral. Hashtags, like Meghan meltdown and Kimmel clash, trending within minutes. Some called her a diva, others a warrior. But one thing was clear. The confrontation had left its mark. Jimmy, for his part, would spin it into late-night gold. But the night belonged to Meghan's defiance, her refusal to play the game on anyone's terms but her own. The stage was empty, the mic still on the desk, and the story was over. But the echoes would linger for days,